Welcome to the Heart and Life Podcast, a podcast dedicated to encouraging, equipping, and edifying the people called Methodist in North Alabama and across the globe. Hello once again, friends, and welcome to the Heart and Life Podcast. I'm your host, Brandon Rogers. It's annual conference season here in the Global Methodist Church, with various conferences scattered around the globe, either having already held their annual meetings or getting ready to hold them. As we record this here in North Alabama, our annual conference is only a little over a month away. Today I'll be talking with Reverend Alan Beasley, our Conference Superintendent, and Reverend Toby Chastain, who chairs our Board of Ministry, all about our upcoming annual conference. Gentlemen, it's great to have you both on the podcast again. Welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good to have you guys with us. You guys are my first repeat visitors here to the podcast. So you can hold that as whatever level of distinction or or not that you choose. But we are talking annual conference today. Ours is coming up here in June, and just wanted to have you guys on to really spend a little time talking about the upcoming conference and all that it has in store for us. So Toby, I'll start with you if that's all right, and just maybe for our listeners who are not quite as familiar with the Global Methodist Church or with Methodism more broadly, can you give us just a brief explanation in broad terms of what an annual conference is?
I will. I'm going to try to be brief, but I think there's some helpful historical information because the annual conference it's not a new concept within the Methodist movement. It actually dates itself all the way back to Wesley in the 1740s, and the idea of having an annual conference. And the original conferences looked more like what we would call a general conference to discuss theological ideas and coming to agreement, especially as the new movement was being formed, coming to agreement on areas of shared doctrine. Wesley had this desire to have more open decision making, more people involved in the process, rather than just being a kind of a top down mentality. And so he'd gather those various preachers, and they would talk about some of these concerns and ideas as they arose of how to order the life of the church and make decisions of doctrine. It was also the place where preachers were given their next appointment. So you would show up at annual conference and you would find out where you were going to be appointed next. It wasn't a predetermination of that. That happened at annual conference itself. And one of the first issues at the very first conference was, how are we going to empower the laity, specifically the lay preachers, and involve them? And this process and practice kind of continued, especially as Methodism moved over to America, and we began to set up the kind of American Methodist movement that would eventually become the establishment of the Methodist Church, the Methodist Episcopal Church. And they began this kind of annual conference structure, and they would meet. And of course, 1784 is the most famous of these annual conferences, which was the Christmas Conference in America, and it established the Methodist Church in the Episcopal Methodist Church in America. And in 1788, just 4 years after we started, Francis Asbury, the bishop at the time, decided that he couldn't be at all places at once, and trying to get everybody all together was taxing with such a large and expansive new country. And so he kind of created the idea of having regional or multiple annual conferences that would be established at that point. And so one of the things that happened is you kind of began to get this idea that the annual conference was not just a meeting, but was a kind of a regional body. It was kind of and pastors and preachers would itinerate within a certain geographic region. And so you would gather together and you might discuss more regional issues. So if you lived in Alabama, you might discuss issues that pertain to things in your area versus if you lived in Maryland or somewhere else. But still the practice of gathering together and having conversations about different issues that face the church, as well as finding out where your next appointment was going to be. But these were mostly gatherings of preachers. Laity really weren't involved, and it wasn't until the 1830s in some branches, and really 1939 in kind of our branch, that we kind of trace our roots back to when laity were made part of the process. And so now, kind of what we've built into at this point is that the annual conference is the group that is formed for the purpose of connecting clergy and laity for shared ministry and accountability. That's straight out of the discipline, the doctrines and discipline. The idea is that it's a gathering of both laity and clergy, and it's a 50% ratio. So we have every clergy person that's appointed and any retired clergy are able to serve in that role and serve as a delegate to annual conference. And then we have an equal number of laity. Most of those come out of local churches as a kind of a, if you have a pastor at a church or you have two pastors at a church, you might get two laity delegates. And then if we have extra that we need to for some of the retired, kind of to equal the retired clergy, we have an equalization process where we have so that there's a 50 to 50 kind of voting structure, and and that's for voting issues. But the real purpose of annual conference is to gather together for worship, to gather together for prayer, to gather together to encourage one another, and to strengthen each other's bonds of unity throughout the regional area. And so that's kind of a brief history and kind of understanding of what annual conference has been and what it has become and what it is today.
Thank you so much for that. That's a great that's a really great explanation of annual conference and all that is involved with that. So, Alan, Toby was able to give us kind of a broad overview of what annual conference has historically been about. I'd like to kind of shift and talk specifically about our annual conference coming up. And so if you could you just kind of give us the rundown of the critical, the date pieces, who's supposed to be registered, and kind of a rundown of what's going to be happening at our annual conference?
Sure, I'll be glad to do that. Our annual conference is June 12th through 14th. We will meet at Clear Branch Methodist Church in Trussville. Our theme this year is grace and truth, and it's around John 1:14 is our theme verse. Those that should attend are all of our clergy. Part of the covenant that a clergy person makes with the annual conference is that they will attend the annual conference. And as Toby had says, the delegates are equalized. So for every clergy person, there's a lay person. And generally the way that works is every church who has an appointed clergy elects a lay delegate who attends. And there's an equalization process for those pastors who serve more than one church. And we've tried to accommodate the differences in numbers and that kind of thing. We just want people to come. And whether they come as an official lay delegate or a guest and just to attend and enjoy the conference, we're good with that. We just want people to attend and be a part of this great movement that is beginning. But as I said, it's the 12th through the 14th. That's Thursday through Saturday. On Thursday is a day for clergy, and we're going to spend the majority of the day in teaching sessions with Dr. Tim Tennant, who will teach 3 sessions around the concept of truth and doctrine and Methodism. And then one session will be led by Bishop Carolyn Moore, who's going to focus in on the grace side of that verse. So we're looking forward to that training for our clergy. It begins at 9 o'clock, so all of our clergy will need to be in Trussville at our location, registered and ready to go at 9 o'clock in the morning. That night after dinner, we'll have our clergy session, which we deal with business that's related to clergy and receiving new candidates for ministry and that kind of thing. A lot of things that just pertain to clergy. Then Friday morning, the laity will join us, and annual conference now is just a celebration of who we are and a celebration of the unity of spirit and the joy of our history and doctrine and the powerful movement of God's Spirit in our heart and life. And we do have some business to conduct, including the election of delegates to attend General Conference in 26. But we want to celebrate. We want it to be a time of celebration and joy together as an annual conference. So it will be around worship services. Friday and Saturday will be around worship services, and then there is some business that will mingle in there as well. But the lady join us, and we're just going to have a great time together and worship and celebrate what's going on in the life of Methodist in North Alabama.
Fantastic. Thank you
And
for that. And
they can
yeah,
register. The registration process. All of our clergy and hopefully all of our lay delegates now have received an email that has the registration link in it. And if they can't find that, they can go to the North Alabama Conference website, which is northalabamagmc.org, and you open it up, and the registration will pop right up on your landing page. And it's a simple form to fill out. You have a few meals to pick, so on and so forth. But that registration link has been emailed, and then as people can't find that or didn't get it or whatever, we just point them to the website and say you can register from there.
very good. Very good.
And,
Yep.
and I would add that there is no cost this year for annual conference.
Yeah.
We've covered the cost for everything this year.
Yeah, no cost this year.
Very good. Very good. That's good information, and we'll repeat that before we end today, just to make sure everybody knows about that. There are a lot of different components, and you guys have already been talking about it, that make up annual conference, from prayer and worship to conducting the business of the conference. One of the highlights to me every year is our service of ordination. And Toby, with you being the chair of our board of ministry, I wonder if you could tell us a little bit about the service of ordination, where it's going to be, who's involved with that, and just kind of give us an overview of what that's like.
Sure. So one of the things, and you mentioned this, that we want to make sure we let everybody know is that our service of ordination is going to be held at Trustful First Methodist Church this year. We're so thankful for Clear Branch for hosting our annual conference these last few years, and of course they've hosted our first two ordination services, especially the first year when we had so many that were being ordained. But the feeling among the board and the cabinet was that with kind of the scale and scope of our ordination service, and also with just the fact that it's a more formal service. Clear Branch is designed to be a more contemporary space, and the ordination service has a little more liturgy and formality, and so we wanted to get to a place where we could kind of celebrate that with some hymns and choir music and processionals, and so we made the decision to move there, and First Trustful was very willing to accommodate us. And so we'll be there that evening at 7:00. So the ordination service is the time when we ordain pastors for ministry, and our Bishop Carolyn Moore, will be there, and she will come and lay hands on those that are being ordained. She'll preach an ordination message. We'll ask them some historic questions. That's part of our tradition, is to ask those historic Wesleyan questions, and then they'll each be ordained. We have 8 persons being ordained as a deacon. We have 2 persons being ordained as an elder, and then we have 3 persons who are being ordained both deacon and elder. And some of that stems out of, as you know, we're still growing the movement and making adjustments. And we had some persons who came to us from the United Methodist Church who were local pastors in that tradition, but they had finished all their coursework. They had basically done everything they needed to do, and they had spent multiple years in service. And so the transitional kind of provisions within the Book of Doctrine and Discipline gives us the ability to ordain those persons, both deacon and elder, at the same conference, so they can have that status. And so each of the folks that are coming before us as deacons and elders, Those have been vetted by the Board of Ministry. They've been interviewed. They've been asked a series of questions. They have been voted on by the Board of Ministry and recommended. Now, what we do is we recommend them to the clergy session of annual conference, which is, Alan mentioned, meets on Thursday evening. And if and when approved by that group, then they are ordained on Friday night as part of that service. And all are welcome to attend. We're also going to have it on live stream. And so it's good. It's just a wonderful time of celebration and of recognizing those persons. You know, in the Global Methodist Church, we believe that everybody is called to ministry. Everybody's called to serve the Lord. Everybody's called to be a part. But out of that, out of all persons, the Lord, calls certain persons to the vocation of ordained ministry, and so we are recognizing that and giving those persons the charge to serve in that way.
Very, very good. Yes, and I'll chime in there and just say it really is a very special time, and for the ordinands, those who are being ordained, it is such a huge moment in the life of their service, and we want to support all of them. I know how much it meant to me when I was ordained, and we certainly want to encourage everybody, because it is at a different site, but make that effort to be there and support those. You said there are 8 deacons, 2 elders, and 3 who will be ordained, both deacon and then elder. That is awesome. What a great class.
And let me add this too, Brandon, if I can.
Sure.
One of the things that we're going to be reinstating this year is we're going to have our already ordained clergy, or those that are already part of the process, the opportunity to process in. We're going to bring that back in this year, and so we'll be sending out more information to our clergy. But if we're going to hope that those that are ordained clergy in the connection might be there about 6:30. So that they can process in as part of that processional during the conference and participate in that way, and because it's an important part for them as well.
Fantastic! I love that. I'm so glad to hear that's going to be a part of it. That is great. That's really, really good. So it was pretty evident to me, and I think in conversation with lots of other folks, from our very first annual conference, it was clear that there is just a different feel to annual conference than what maybe we had experienced in our previous denomination. Now, I'm not trying to look down on or look back in a negative way at what we came out of, but there is a noticeable difference, and I think it's worth talking about that a little bit. So, Alan, I wonder if you could maybe share some of your personal thoughts on what the experience of annual conference is like in the Global Methodist Church from your perspective.
Sure. I think you can't answer that question without reminding ourselves the nature of annual conference that we came from. I think you have to get the correct perspective, and what we have now in the GMC is something that is a time of celebration around the goodness of God and the outpouring of the Holy Spirit. And there is very little contention in the room. We came out of a culture where everything was contended for position and a certain, thought to gain traction. And so everything was a little bit nerve-wracking, and you couldn't just be yourself and celebrate and worship. And we've made a conscious effort to make annual conference around the broad definition of worship. And that was, as Toby mentioned earlier, that was what holy conferencing was about. It wasn't to come and argue and contend over every decision that's going to be made. that you're going to come together as the people of the body of Christ and celebrate what God is doing. And I'm happy to say that both our annual conferences that we've had so far, General Conference last year in Costa Rica was just that, and we're going to continue to do that. I made probably a quoted statement from during the business session last year that causes Toby's head to spin around on his neck. But I said, our focus is to get the spirit correct, and all the technicality will work itself out. Now, sometimes if you take that too far, then you're not being attentive to the rules in which we have to order ourselves by, and the discipline, and so on and so forth. But my point was this, and I wanted everybody to hear this. What we're about during annual conference is for people to leave and their spirit has engaged with the Spirit of the living God, so that they are a different and better person when they go home. And hopefully we've created something that people want to attend, because my personal confession is that not just as the issues around disaffiliation became contentious in the last 5 or 6 years, but long time previous to that, there was nothing about annual conference I wanted to come to other than seeing people that I hadn't seen for a year. Now, that's a good reason to come, and I enjoyed that. But if the conference itself doesn't lend anything that draws people to the building, then we're failing at our preparation, and we're failing at our execution. So it just, as the conference superintendent, I'm just going to continue to beat that drum, is that once really Friday starts, in our current schedule, when the laity join us, we're going to be about the broad understanding of worship, so that in some way, even our business sessions have an element of worship. We're just not going to, leap into anything without acknowledging the presence of God and somehow being open to the movement of the Spirit, even in a business session or a time of election. So I think it's a culture change. It is really a huge culture change, where we have really flipped the script of where our emphasis is going to be, and our emphasis is going to be on worship. So that's the best, Brandon, that's the best way I can describe it.
No, that's well put. Thank you for that. And I will say, as somebody sitting in the seats, sitting out in the cheap seats, it is definitely a noticeable, a palpable difference in the way things are, in the way things were. And I would, to be fair, I would guess that the folks that are part of our previous denomination, they probably feel much the same way, because they were contending on one side, so to speak, and we were sort of on the other, and there were lots of headbutting. So I don't know. I've not connected with their group, but I assume that they probably feel a lot less contentious as well. So
well, Brandon, that was kind of, what gets lost in what has brought us to this point is that instead of us focusing on the separation, let's focus on getting everybody positioned correctly, so that we can all do ministry and mission for the sake of the kingdom in a way that honors who we are, without having to fight battles from within to accomplish the mission and ministry.
Absolutely.
And yes, the separation was real, and a lot of difficulty was around that. But yes, that was ultimately what we would love for to happen. We don't wish you know, uh, lack of success on anybody. And I think you're right. I think those that gather together, it will gather together. I think they're meeting in Birmingham. Will have a wonderful time of unity and celebration around who they are. So I think that's
Yeah.
exactly what we wanted to happen.
Amen. Amen. Well, Toby, I kind of want to ask you a very similar question. I know that you have experience and have spent time being involved in the coordination of conferences. And so, what are your own thoughts of what annual conference is like in the GMC, kind of from your perspective?
Well, it's a different. It's just different. With in our former denomination, there was a lot more that we had to do to kind of prepare. We were setting up at early on at Birmingham Southern, and then at the Von Braun Center, and a few times at the BJCC. And so you kind of had to prepare to have everything on site. So you were spending several kind of days kind of getting all the stuff loaded. You would have an outside sound group and video group you were working with. You had a lot to coordinate. Plus, there were just a lot of other kind of wheels and things that had to happen, and pieces that had to come together to make it happen. So meeting in churches, as we have done, has been really helpful. Those spaces are kind of set up to have meetings of worship, which, as Alan said, is more of our purpose and our pattern, is to have more worship, less business. But the other part of it is there are some other challenges that come with that too, and so you just kind of make those adjustments and how you can set things up so that you can conduct the business. And that's one of the reasons why Alan and I work so well together. We complemented each other and pulled each other in different ways. Alan will push for as much worship as he can get in the time we have allotted, and I will kindly remind him that we need to have some business because we have to get some things done when we gather together. We have to make some decisions. For example, this year we're going to have a conversation around conference standards for clergy vacation and clergy time away and parsonage standards. Just so that we can, because as clergy move around, as they are itinerant and move around and are appointed to different locations, we want to make sure that there's kind of an equitable and agreed upon kind of standard. We're also going to have like he said, we do have election of delegates for general conference this year, and we have a few other items that we need to discuss. We'll have to set the budget. We'll have to just things that are important for the life and pattern, but also the thing that's different is it's not contentious. We can have some conversations, and we may have questions. We may even have folks that are not in agreement with the decision we're making, but it doesn't feel like there's a tension in the room. It feels like there's a polite, honest discussion, all wanting the same. We're all wanting the same outcome. We may have different ways of getting there, but we all are wanting the same thing for our church to grow and thrive, and for us to make disciples of Jesus Christ and to spread scriptural holiness. We're all kind of on that same line, and so whatever business we need to take care of that gets us in that direction is an important part of the process.
Hey, can I jump in right quick there?
Sure.
I meant to mention this earlier. Toby mentioned our discussions. The joy we have now is our discussions are not about the right and wrong of theology.
Yes.
Our discussions around generally an individual's way they want to see things done.
It's process.
It's a process. There are questions around process. There are questions around, why don't clergy have 10 weeks of vacation instead of only 4 or 5? Things like that. And so we'll have questions of process, but there's hardly ever going to be. I can't imagine, anytime in the near future, we're going to have a question around the right and wrong of theology related to what we're doing. So that's a huge difference right there. And I meant to mention that earlier, so I wanted to throw that in.
That's great.
And I would and that's the piece of it. Like you said, we're all on the same page, moving in that direction. One of the things that we had to, I won't say contend with, but one of the things that we had to establish within our previous denomination was we were very scheduled, like down to the minute of what was going to happen. We had scripts, we had things that were going on, and the reason why is because we had a number of reports and we had people that were speaking and sharing, and we needed to protect the time, and so there was a precision of timing for reports. If you were given the floor or the microphone, you had to turn in your script ahead of time, and we may get there eventually, but I don't think that's a way we want to return, because that doesn't leave a lot of movement for the Holy Spirit, and the fact that we're I don't want to give a percentage, but 90% worship and 10% business leaves a lot more room for the Holy Spirit, a lot more room for us to celebrate and to be joyful together, and not to have to worry as much about listening to an endless drone of reports, things that you could just read in a newsletter.
Yeah, that's. I think we're making an effort to provide information to people, and we're respecting people being grown adults, and they can read and not have somebody stand up and regurgitate something that would be in front of them and they could read. I mean, I think that's a difference too, is, we're putting some responsibility on delegates to read what's provided and then engage that when they have to, and not just take up, podium time, just going over what's been handed them in writing.
Yeah, we never want annual conference to become something that could have been an email.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking.
Yeah, that's a perfect way to put it. Exactly. Yeah.
Yes. Very good. Well, we have, and you've already mentioned them, Alan, but we have, I think, just some tremendous leaders and teachers lined up to speak to us this year.
Right.
Can you tell us a little bit about our speakers this year?
Okay, so we have two guests. Well, one guest and our bishop, but first, Dr. Timothy Tennant is going to be with us, and he will teach, as I said, on Thursday, and then he's going to lead a short Bible study on Saturday morning. But he's most notably recently was president of Asbury Theological Seminary, had a distinguished career there, did great work on behalf of the seminary. He is now at Beasley Divinity School in Birmingham. He is the director of the Wesley Studies program at Beasley, and he is the Methodist chair of divinity. And so we're looking forward. He is a prolific author. He's a songwriter. His wife is the composer of the songs that she writes and he writes, and so he's multi-talented. We're looking forward to him being here. Bishop Carolyn Moore was elected last year in Costa Rica, and she comes to us as our bishop who was assigned to North Alabama. As you know, the bishops don't have one conference. We don't have residential bishops. We have regionalized bishops, and they're not even congruent conferences that they're over. So she has widespread in the U.S. She has us, South Carolina, and Western states, and then some international conferences. But she comes to us. She was elected out of North Georgia, was serving a church that she planted there many years ago, and is a wonderful spiritual leader. She embodies, I think, very well the idea that our bishops, first and foremost, are going to preach, teach, protect our doctrine and discipline, and defend the faith. And she is, doing a great job of that. She's, widely known as a speaker all over the country, and So we're fortunate to have her be our bishop, and they will. So our bishop will be here. It's hard to really categorize her as a guest. She is required to be here so that she can fix appointments and ordain our clergy, but we get to enjoy her preaching and teaching while she's here, and Dr. Tennant as well. And I have responsibility as the superintendent to speak once, and that's a necessary evil probably in the eyes of most people who attend, but it is what it is, so I can't help it.
Uh, no, that's great, and of course, Bishop Moore was with us last year at annual conference. She was
Right.
not at that point. At that point, she was not a bishop, but she did come and teach, and so a lot of our folks should be familiar with her already. And Dr. Tennant's work is so widely known and regarded. So we're very fortunate to have him right here in the heart of our own conference now.
Right.
So
Right.
that's what a joy that is, and his work, if beyond serving as president of Asbury, I know he has done tremendous work in India over the years, and like you said, he's a prolific author, and I think everybody will just really enjoy and really get a lot out of his teaching. He's a deep thinker and a fantastic person to have in our own backyard.
Right.
Toby, any thoughts on our speakers that you wanted to jump in with? I didn't want to cut you off there.
No, I think Alan shared it. The only thing I might add is, as we are moving forward, is that Dr. Tennant is at Beasley, which of course is in Alabama, and one of the things that he's worked to do, and the seminary has worked to do, is they are providing some significant scholarships for those students who want to attend that are Global Methodist students. They want to. So if there's any students discerning a call to ministry or looking to go to seminary, definitely look at Beeson, and Dr. Tennant will be able to share more about that as well.
Fantastic. Yes, and that's great that program will be available, like I said, in kind of our own backyard. We don't have to go far off to get a really good quality education. And with him leading sort of the Methodist program, the Wesleyan program there, we be sure to get the important pieces that sort of are our distinctive. Our distinctives as Wesleyans. So that's fantastic. Well, guys, kind of as we wrap up, I wonder if there are any final comments or thoughts on the upcoming annual conference this year that you guys would like to share.
Well, I would just say we need to get people registered. Our first deadline is May the 20th. That's simply for ordering meal purposes, but we're going to try to accommodate everyone that registers all the way up to the beginning of the annual conference. But by May the 20th, we would love to have the bulk of the registration. So, we need pastors to get registered. We need pastors to lay hard into their commitment to be there Thursday, Friday, and Saturday morning. Make sure you're late. Tell our pastors need to make sure that their lay delegates are registered. We don't in any shape, form, or fashion claim to be perfect, and I would say that our email and we're doing all this digitally, which is a little bit different, and this kind of the cost saving measure of being a lean budget, lean administration, that we do all this digitally, and we wouldn't claim that our lay delegate email list is perfect. So we need pastors to make sure that their lay delegate is registered and planning to attend. Brandon, there's a good chance you may not even know who your lay delegate is, and we would give you a break if you don't. But I would at least start asking the question at least, who is our lay delegate, and are they prepared to go? So
right.
Yeah. Since you might even not know who the lay leader is at all.
I don't even know where all the light switches are yet.
Yeah,
so.
I agree. Yeah. I hope you know where the parsonage is. I hope you know
right.
that.
Yes,
So,
for sure.
But anyway, we just need to get people registered and get excited about coming and spending
Yes.
the time with us. Again, lodging is on everybody, is on their own. They have to secure all that. We have so many people who, because it's in Birmingham, it's a commute for them. It may be a long commute, but they've decided to make it a commute. So, but if they're gonna stay overnight in trustful area, they're on their own. We don't have enough capacity to really, work out lodging with a particular hotel, at a rate or anything like that. So they're on their own, but make those, needed reservations if that's part of what their process will be. But then just start getting the word around, and then, pray for our annual conference. We have a wonderful prayer coordinator who's already on that. She is getting people praying. We're having Monday night prayer meetings related to that, Zoom prayer calls on Monday night. So it's going to be an exciting time, and just we need to get people registered and on board, and pay attention to the form when you fill it out. It's not that difficult.
Yeah.
If it is difficult, then send all your complaints to Toby Chastain, because he created it. Just don't send them to me. Just don't send them to me.
Yeah, go ahead. I would add just a few extra things. As Alan said, we really want people to be at the conference, and so we're making every effort. The May 20th kind of deadline for that is to help us to be able to plan food, so that the quicker you can get it in, the better. But we do have two other deadlines that are hard deadlines, and that is if you intend to lift your name up as a potential delegate for general conference as a lay person or clergy person, that May 20th deadline is a hard deadline for planning and for just kind of qualification purposes. And those forms can be found at that site as well. And so if the Lord leads you to lift your name up for that. Also, if you would like to submit a petition or a resolution to the annual conference, that deadline is also May the 20th, and that is a hard deadline, so that we can plan for the business of the conference. Just a reminder, a petition is a resolution, or is a piece of information, a piece of business that you would like to lift up that would go to the general conference. So it's basically voted on and approved by the annual conference as a motion to the general conference. A resolution is something that affects just our annual conference, and we'll have, like I said, I know a few resolutions that'll come before that, but that deadline is also May the 20th. The other thing I'd like to make sure we highlight is that part of our annual conference, we will have some vendors. This year it's limited to our seminaries, but we will have representative from most of our seminaries there that are offering both seminary courses and course of studies, and some of them are even offering Bible and theology courses for laypersons that laypersons can take advantage of. And so if you're interested in learning more about our education process, you can talk to some of the seminaries that will be joining us as vendors, as well as Seedbed Publishing, which is one of the primary publishing arms that we have within they're not part of the Global Methodist Church, but they're a partner with us, and we a lot of our churches are using the new hymnal that they've produced, as well as some of their curriculum for small groups and Sunday school. And so we would encourage you to plan to stop by those booths and check out some of the vendors and see what they have to offer our connection.
Fantastic. No, that's great information. I appreciate you really emphasizing those deadlines, and yeah, definitely. Seedbed's always a trap for me. I can't go by there without buying something. So no, that's great. They put out a lot of great resources, and they're doing a great job helping to resource us. Speaking of learning opportunities, just as sort of a quick bonus here, Toby, do you want to mention the upcoming lay ministry class you're going to be teaching?
Yes, there's going to be a lay ministry class at Gunnersville First Methodist Church next Saturday which is May the 17th. It's part of our lay ministry training. The topic is going to be Methodist history. So if you enjoyed some of the conversations we had about annual conference history, we'll be delving into that, as well as the early Methodist movement and the movement of the Methodists in the 1800s. We tend to get focused on John Wesley and kind of his movement, which obviously he's the founder, and that's an important part. But So much of what we do today and so much of how we understand our movement was shaped around the 1800s sort of revival movements and some of the things that happened as Methodism spread across America. And so we want to celebrate that and learn some lessons that I think we may have partially forgotten that I think can shape our new movement. And then we'll also have some conversations around polity, around how we organize ourselves and explaining and understanding how we work, everything from the global level with the general conference all the way down to the local level, and how individual churches are organized, and just an attempt to help our laity better understand how we order our lives and how we kind of develop some of those thoughts and ideas.
Fantastic. And Toby, is registration closed on that, or can folks still sign up to be a part of that?
I think it is closing, but if the registration link is online at the same northalabamagmc.org, and if by some it is Monday, May the 12th, so it is still open. You can still register, but if by some chance, I'm not sure when this is getting published, if you miss the deadline, send me an email. My email is Toby NA, so North Alabama, NAGMC. So Toby NAGMC @gmail.com. Send me an email, and we'll get you in. We want as many folks to come as well, and so we'll be there. But that deadline is currently Monday, May the 12th, and that is on our website on the front page there.
Very good. Okay. Well, I just wanted to get that out there. I think that'll be a great learning opportunity for anybody who is interested in those topics. And I know you will do a fantastic job teaching that class. So I appreciate the efforts that you guys are doing with teaching these lay ministry classes. I think those are fantastic. So, all right, guys. Any final thoughts then before we wrap up on annual conference? Besides, get registered. Pay attention to the deadlines and get excited and be praying about annual conference.
Clergy are wearing white stoles at ordination.
Okay,
yes.
Good. That's a good to know. Good to know. All right. Well, friends, that's going to do it for us today. That's about all the time we have on the Heart and Life podcast. Thanks again to the Reverend Alan Beasley and the Reverend Toby Chastain for being on today. I think they shared a lot of important information about our upcoming annual conference. And if you are clergy in the North Alabama GMC, or if you are the lay delegate for your church, be sure and get registered. Pay attention to those deadlines. Thanks again for joining us today on the Heart and Life podcast, and God bless. Well, that's about all the time we have today on the Heart and Life podcast. We hope you've enjoyed our conversation, but even more, we hope that something in it brought you hope, inspiration, or maybe taught you something new. If you enjoyed today's episode, please like, follow, subscribe, and share our podcast on your podcast platform of choice. Music for today's episode is Genoa by 50 Sounds.